would you like to swing on a star?
Lanford Eugene Wilson is an American playwright born on April 13, 1937 in Lebanon, Missouri, to parents Ralph and Violetta Wilson. After attending 3 different universities over the course of 3 years, Wilson decided on pursuing playwriting at his 4th school, the University of Chicago. Wilson was a founding member and resident playwright of the Circle Repertory Company in New York. Balm in Gilead, Wilson's first full-length play, was produced at Café La Mama in 1965, and The Gingham Dog, his first Broadway play, was produced in 1969. Wilson's most successful play, Talley's Folly, originally ran on Broadway for 286 performances and won Wilson the Pulitzer Prize in Playwriting in 1980. Lanford Wilson's plays focus around the conflict between traditional values and modern life. Talley's Folly is a prime example of this, looking at how society viewed interfaith marriages in the 1940s as well as how it viewed women and their role in society. Wilson was also a pioneer of gay theater. Wilson was an openly gay man successful in mainstream theater. At age 74, Wilson died of complication from pneumonia in Wayne, New Jersey on March 24, 2011.
Moonbeams home in a jar, and be better off than you are. Or would you rather be a mule? A mule.
Styles of the 1940s. Women's clothes were designed to resemble utilitarian clothing during war rationing. The styles included squared shoulders, narrow hips, and skirts that ended right below the knee. DIY dresses were all the rage. It encouraged women to educate themselves on dress design and specifically to reflect the style of utility clothes. Men's styles were also influenced by war rationing. Unnecessary accessories such as pocket flaps, vests, and cuffs were removed from outfits. Men's hair was greased back, especially for the younger men of the 1940s. Despite today's culture, it was believed that wearing flashy clothing at the time was considered unpatriotic. After the war, Paris and Italy were no longer leaders of fashion, putting high pressure on other designers. People were encouraged to wear sturdy clothing with neutral fibers and colors.
His back is brawny, but his brain is weak. He's just plain stupid with a stubborn streak. And by the way, if you hate to go to school...
Politics of Europe. Anti-Semitism existed in all 20th century European societies. The economic and social problems that accompanied the rise of capitalism and industrialization were often blamed on the Jews. In Western Europe, anti-Semitism was still mostly expressed in print and by putting up social barriers for Jews. The middle class became the main supporters of anti-Semitic ideas. From 1881 to 1914, more than 2.5 million Jews migrated from Eastern Europe, about 80,000 each year, and 2 million Jews reached the United States and about 350,000 resided in Western Europe. Few countries were open to migrants from Eastern Europe after 1918. France was one country that did allow migrants because they needed workers for its industry and reconstruction in the north. Jews also settled in France to be free from the problems of Eastern Europe, and many of them fought for France during World War I.
If you hate to go to school, you may grow up to be a mule. Or would you like to swing on a star?
Intermarriage has been a prominent issue in the Jewish community. In 1939, Chicago Reform Rabbi Felix Mendelssohn advised his congregates to avoid intermarriage because it posed sociological problems. His argument was purely based on religious grounds and was not meant to belittle any race or religion. Some other important factors included previous marital status, occupation and employment status, religious education, and trends.
Carry moonbeams home in a jar and be better off than you are. Or would you rather be a pig?
Cult of domesticity. What is it? The central idea was that a woman's place is in the home. True women must possess four cardinal virtues: piety, purity, domesticity, and submissiveness. The idea of true women was usually exclusive to white Protestant women. Working class women, women of color, were excluded from this narrative. 19th century Americans believed that women had a particular propensity for religion. The modern young woman of the 1820s and 1830s was thought of as a new Eve working with God to bring the world out of sin through her suffering, through her pure and passionless love. Unlike participation in other societies and movement, church work would not make her less domestic or submissive, therefore not less a true woman. Irreligion in females was considered the most revolting human characteristic. It was said, "Godless, no woman, mother thou shalt she be." Significant changes occurred in American society due to the end of World War II in 1945. The baby boom began in 1945 and lasted until about the 1960s. The median age of marriage dropped from about 21.5 to 20.3. The number of children increased from a national average of 2 to 3, and in 1940, 50% of women in their 30s never married, and in 1967, only 7%. These trends reinforced the cult of domesticity. Women were ushered into the workplace as temporary replacements for men during World War II. Some women managed to break barriers in the public sphere but were treated unfairly. Once the war was over in 1945, women were forced back into the domestic sphere.
His shoes are a terrible disgrace. He has no manners when he eats his food. He's fat and lazy and extremely rude. But if you don't care a feather or a fig, you may grow up to be a pig. Or would you like to swing on a star? Carry moonbeams home in a jar.